1. The floating axe head, 2 Kings 6 verses 1 to 7. It's one of those stories that sounds small compared to the big ones, but it carries a deep message. A group of prophets was building a new place to stay. As one man swung his borrowed axe, the iron head flew off into the river. He cried out in panic, "Oh no, my lord!" It was borrowed. To us, that sounds like a minor problem. But to him, it was a disaster. Iron tools were expensive and rare. Losing one meant debt, shame, and struggle. Elisha didn't laugh or brush it off. He simply asked, "Where did it fall?" Then he cut a stick, threw it in the water, and the iron floated to the surface. Just imagine that moment. Cold water rippling, sunlight flashing on the metal as it rises. A miracle, not for a king or a crowd, but for one worried man who lost something small. That's the beauty of God's care. Sometimes the miracle isn't about parting seas. It's about finding what you lost when you thought it was gone forever. He's not too great to care about small things. He's too loving to ignore them. 2. The jar of oil, 2 Kings 4 verses 1 to 7. A widow came to Elisha, desperate. Her husband had died, leaving debts she couldn't pay. The creditors wanted her sons as slaves. Elisha asked her a simple question. "What do you have in your house?" She said, "Nothing except a small jar of oil." Elisha told her to borrow empty jars from her neighbors. "Not just a few," he said. She did. She began to pour from that single jar, and oil flowed and flowed and flowed. Every jar filled until there were no more left. Only then did the oil stop. She sold the oil, paid her debts, and lived free. That's not just a miracle of provision. It's a miracle of faith in motion. Her oil didn't multiply in the cupboard. It flowed as she poured. God often waits for us to take a step before he shows his power. When we move, he multiplies. 3. The coin in the fish's mouth, Matthew 17 verses 24 to 27. It's such a strange little story. Jesus and Peter were asked to pay the temple tax. Peter didn't have the money, and maybe he felt awkward. After all, this was the Son of God. Jesus told him, "Go to the lake, throw out your line, take the first fish you catch, open its mouth, and you'll find a coin. Use it to pay the tax for both of us." Think about that. God provided exactly what was needed, in the most unexpected place. Sometimes our blessing is swimming right toward us, but we only find it when we obey. Jesus could have created a coin out of thin air, but he asked Peter to go fishing, to participate in the miracle. Your miracle might be hiding in something ordinary. In your job, your effort, your faithfulness. Keep casting your line. 4. The unseen angels, 2 Kings 6 verses 15 to 17. Elisha's servant woke one morning to see an army surrounding their city, horses, chariots, and soldiers everywhere. Terrified, he cried out, "Oh no, my lord! What shall we do?" Elisha replied, "Don't be afraid. Those who are with us are more than those who are with them." Then Elisha prayed, "Lord, open his eyes so that he may see." And suddenly the servant saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire, heavenly warriors standing guard around them. Sometimes the miracle isn't something new happening. It's your eyes opening to what's already there. You might feel alone, cornered, hopeless, but heaven's army is around you. God hasn't left you. You just can't see everything he's doing yet. 5. The shadow that moved backward, 2 Kings 20 verses 1 to 11. King Hezekiah was dying. He prayed, wept, and begged God for more time. God answered and gave him 15 more years of life. But then God added a sign. He made the shadow on the steps move backward, time itself reversed. It's a breathtaking image. The sun pausing, the shadow retreating, history bending because God said so. Here's what that tells us. When God speaks, time itself listens. Your age, your past, your delay, it's not the final say. If God wants to restore, renew, or rewrite, he can. Even time bows before him. 6. The whisper of God, 1 Kings 19 verses 11 to 12. Elijah was broken, hiding in a cave, feeling alone and forgotten. Then came a wind, powerful enough to tear mountains apart. But God wasn't in the wind. Then came an earthquake. Then a fire. Still no God. And then came a gentle whisper. That was him. Sometimes the miracle isn't thunder or fire. It's peace after panic. It's the whisper that reaches you when no one else can. That's God's language of comfort, the quiet miracle of his voice. 7. The broken chains in the night. Acts 16 verses 25 to 26. Paul and Silas sat in prison, their feet chained, their bodies bruised. And what did they do? They sang. In the middle of darkness, they worshipped. Then came a quake that shook the prison to its foundations. Chains fell. Doors opened. Freedom came, wrapped in worship. Your praise is powerful, Amna. When you worship in your night, heaven shakes on your behalf. Sometimes your miracle begins not with shouting, but singing. A gentle conclusion. The Bible's miracles aren't just grand displays for ancient times. They're love notes from a God who never changes. A God who sees small losses, quiet fears, late nights, and deep prayers. He still makes the iron float. He still fills empty jars. He still places provision in unexpected places. And yes, he still moves shadows backward when all hope feels gone. Maybe the miracle you've been waiting for is already near. You just haven't noticed it yet. Look again. Pray again. Listen again. The same God who worked in those moments still works in yours. He hasn't forgotten you. He's just writing a quiet miracle you haven't seen yet. 1. Manna in the desert, Exodus 16. The Israelites wandered the wilderness, tired, hungry, and scared. The desert stretched endlessly before them, offering nothing to eat or drink. And then God provided. Each morning, a thin layer of white flakes covered the ground. They called it manna. It tasted like honey, filling, sustaining, enough for each day. God didn't give them a lifetime supply all at once. He gave enough for each day, teaching trust, reliance, and patience. When we feel abandoned or overwhelmed, manna reminds us, God gives exactly what we need, exactly when we need it. Faith isn't about hoarding blessings. It's about taking the next step, trusting that God will provide today. 2. Elijah fed by ravens. 1 Kings 17 verses 1 to 6. Elijah was alone, hiding from a king who wanted him dead. Hungry, weary, unsure of tomorrow. God sent ravens. Birds, not angels, not armies. Birds. And they brought him bread and meat twice a day. Think about that for a moment. God commanded nature itself to care for his servant. The miracle wasn't the food alone. It was God's attention to a man who was alone in the wilderness. Sometimes our miracles aren't dramatic. They come as small, consistent provisions that sustain us when we feel invisible. Look around. God might be sending ravens your way today. 3. The healing of Naaman. 2 Kings 5 verses 1 to 14. Naaman was a respected general, but had leprosy. The cure seemed impossible, pride and doubt clouding his mind. A young servant girl said, "If my Lord would only see the prophet in Samaria, he could be healed." Naaman went to Elisha, expecting grand gestures, complex rituals. Instead, Elisha told him simply, "Wash in the Jordan 7 times." At first, Naaman was angry. He wanted fireworks, not water. But when he obeyed, he was healed completely. The miracle wasn't complicated. It required humility, obedience, and faith. God sometimes asks us to do the simple thing, even when it seems too small or ordinary. 4. Water from a rock. Numbers 20:1-13. The Israelites were again in the wilderness, desperate for water. They complained, frustrated, fearful. Moses prayed. God told him to speak to the rock. But in frustration, Moses struck it instead. Water still gushed forth, enough for the entire community. Even when Moses stumbled, God provided. Even when we fail, God's mercy flows. Sometimes miracles come despite our mistakes, reminding us that His grace is bigger than our errors. 5. The sun stands still. Joshua 10 verses 12-14. Joshua faced a terrifying battle. Outnumbered, desperate for victory, he prayed. "Sun, stand still," he said. and the sun stopped. Days stretched on until Israel won the battle. It's a reminder that God can intervene in the natural order when He chooses. Time itself bends before Him. Your situation may feel impossible. Your challenges may seem too long to endure. But with God, even time can wait. Even the impossible can yield. 6. Peter freed from prison. Acts 12 verses 1 to 10. King Herod had Peter arrested, chains on his wrists, guarded by soldiers. The church prayed fervently. And then, in the middle of the night, an angel appeared. Chains fell off. Doors opened. And Peter walked free. The miracle wasn't just the angel. It was the power of prayer. The collective faith of God's people created the space for the miracle to unfold. When you feel trapped, remember, God hears. And sometimes He acts when we pray together. 7. The blind man at Bethesda. John 5 verses 1 to 9. A man had been disabled for 38 years, waiting by the pool of Bethesda, hoping for healing when the waters stirred. Jesus saw him, asked, "Do you want to be healed?" With one command, the man was made whole. It wasn't the waters that healed. It was Jesus' mercy and power. Sometimes we focus on the methods, the rules, the systems, but the true miracle is in God's touch. He sees your suffering. He knows you're waiting, and His timing is perfect. 8. Paul survives a snake bite. Acts 28 verses 1 to 6. After a shipwreck on the island of Malta, Paul was bitten by a venomous snake. Locals expected him to die, but Paul shook it off and remained unharmed. A simple shake, a life untouched by what should have been deadly. God protects in ways that defy human logic. When danger surrounds you, remember, His power can preserve, even when odds seem impossible. 9. Jesus calms the storm. Mark 4 verses 35 to 41. Jesus and His disciples were in a boat when a violent storm hit. Water filled the boat, waves crashing over them.
Panic, fear,
desperation. Jesus slept. They woke Him, terrified. And with just a word, "Peace, be still," the storm vanished. The miracle wasn't just the calm, it was the presence. Jesus was with them in the storm. Even when your life feels chaotic, when fear and doubt rise like waves, His presence is your calm. 10. The woman's oil never ran out. 2 Kings 4 verses 1 to 7 revisited. Sometimes we think miracles are only for kings, generals, or prophets. But God shows us over and over. He cares for widows, orphans, and ordinary people. The widow's jar of oil never stopped flowing. Her debt was cleared, her children saved. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, practical, life-changing. Your miracle might be just as simple: enough food, enough money, enough peace to face today. Closing thoughts. These miracles remind us, God's power isn't limited to what we notice. He moves in hidden, quiet, unexpected ways. Sometimes miracles are loud and visible. Sometimes they're whispers and small daily provisions. Sometimes they appear in nature, in people, in obedience, or in faith-filled prayers. If you feel invisible, weak, or forgotten, remember, the same God who parted seas, healed lepers, raised the dead, and calmed storms is alive today. He is still moving, still working, still performing miracles, ones you may have missed simply because you weren't looking closely enough. 1. God provides quail in the desert. Exodus 16 verses 13 to 15. The Israelites wandered the wilderness, hungry and complaining about the food. God had already given them manna each morning, but sometimes He surprises them further. One evening, a wind brought quail to their camp, an unexpected, abundant provision for thousands. It wasn't just food. It was a reminder that God sees needs even before we ask. Sometimes we worry about tomorrow, but God provides in ways we cannot predict. Your miracle may be waiting at your doorstep in a form you least expect. 2. The widow's son brought back to life. 1 Kings 17 verses 17 to 24. Elijah was staying with a widow whose only son died suddenly. Her grief was immense, yet Elijah prayed and stretched himself over the boy 3 times. God restored his life. Notice, this wasn't a spectacle for the nation. It was intimate, personal, and deeply compassionate. God values individual lives and personal tragedies. He shows up when despair feels overwhelming. Even in your darkest moment, your miracle can be as quiet and profound as the return of a single life. 3. Elisha heals the poisoned stew, 2 Kings 4 verses 38 to 41. During a famine, the sons of the prophets cooked a stew for the community. Unknowingly, poisonous gourds were added. The prophet Elisha prayed and miraculously neutralized the poison, making the stew safe to eat. This miracle may seem small, even practical, but it shows God's care for daily life. He intervenes in ordinary moments, not just dramatic events. Your miracle might come in a small blessing, safety, provision, or peace in the midst of chaos. 4. Jonah survives the fish. Jonah 1:17 to 2:10. Jonah's story is well known, but the miracle often overlooked is his survival inside the fish for 3 days. God preserved him in a place that should have been his grave, preparing him for the mission ahead. Sometimes miracles aren't about immediate results. They're about preservation and preparation. God can protect you in impossible situations, giving you time to fulfill your purpose. 5. Jesus feeds the 5,000. John 6 verses 1 to 14. We know the story. 5 loaves, 2 fish, thousands fed. But look closer. The miracle is not just about food. It's about God multiplying what seems insufficient, about teaching us to trust Him when resources appear too small. The lesson is clear. God doesn't need a lot to accomplish a lot. Your faith, when offered to Him, can turn your small efforts into exponential blessings. 6. The healing of the 10 lepers. Luke 17 verses 11 to 19. 10 men with leprosy approached Jesus, asking for mercy. He healed them all, but only one returned to thank Him. Notice 2 miracles here: healing and gratitude. God's work in our lives often goes unseen by others, but recognition and thanksgiving unlock greater blessings. The miracle might already be done. You just need to see it, acknowledge it, and give thanks. 7. Paul and Silas in prison. Acts 16 verses 25 to 34. Paul and Silas were beaten, chained in prison. Yet they sang hymns at midnight. Suddenly, a massive earthquake shook the prison, opening doors, loosening chains, and setting them free. The miracle was born in worship. Faith, joy, and praise can unlock freedom, even in the darkest circumstances. Your miracle may come when you choose to praise instead of panic. 8. Water turned to wine. John 2 verses 1 to 11. At a wedding in Cana, wine ran out. Jesus turned water into wine, his first public miracle. It was small, intimate, a celebration of joy. But it reveals a profound truth. God cares about our daily joys, our small moments, and even our social needs. Sometimes miracles are not about survival. They are about celebration, transformation, and delight. 9. The healing of the blind man. John 9 verses 1 to 12. A man blind from birth encountered Jesus, who healed him with mud and washing in the pool of Siloam. The miracle wasn't just the gift of sight. It was the transformation of identity, opportunity, and purpose. God's miracles often change not just our situation, but who we are. When you experience God's intervention, it may open new paths and awaken hidden potential. 10. The resurrection of Lazarus. John 11 verses 1 to 44. Lazarus had been dead for 4 days. His sisters mourned, friends wept, hope seemed lost. Then Jesus called his name, and life returned to his body. This isn't just a miracle of life. It's a miracle of timing, trust, and God's authority over death itself. Even when hope is buried, even when circumstances seem final, God can restore, revive, and renew. Closing reflections. God's miracles are everywhere if we open our eyes. Some are grand, public, and spectacular. Others are small, quiet, and deeply personal. They remind us that God notices what we often overlook. Faith and obedience often unlock miracles. Praise, prayer, and trust invite divine intervention. Even ordinary moments can become extraordinary through His power. So, look closely at your life. Your miracle may be hidden in the ordinary, waiting for your faith to see it. The God who worked wonders in the Bible is still working wonders today. He hasn't stopped. He won't stop. And He hasn't forgotten you.
Look, believe.
Receive. Your miracle may already be happening.